As the energy transition accelerates, as it has for the last couple of years, there's a growing concern about who gets left behind. And so that has sparked a conversation about what a just transition might look like. And you can go on the Energy Resources, Student Resources portal, and you can find a number of interviews under climate policy, where we've talked about what a just transition strategy would look like in Canada or the US. And today I'm going to be talking to Joie Warnock, who's with UNIFOR, about where the labor movement sits on a just transition. So welcome to the interview, Joie.
Thanks so much, Markham. I'm really happy to be here, and I love to talk about the issue of just transition. So
well, let's get right into it. And I'm going to start with a broad question, which is, what is UNIFOR's take on the just transition in Canada?
Our take is that with every sector of the economy, when there's a transformation or change happening, that there should be a planned transition, that workers, their fates are taken into consideration when there's government policy or market changes that are having a really major impact. And you'll see, even around the globe, unions around the globe, that there are some basic principles around just transition, but each workplace and region will have their unique issues to take into account.
Now, I would imagine that one of the big issues for a union like UNIFOR is older workers who, their positions are being destroyed by new technologies, changes in the marketplace, and they're floundering a bit. They're wondering where's the next job going to come from? Do they have the skill set? Do they need to go back and get retraining? How does that happen? Is that something that you find particularly concerning in Canada?
We do. There's a demographic that has, the biggest struggle to land on their feet if there's a workplace closure or, some kind of downsizing. And that tends to be the older demographic. And so one of the principles is that there be a pathway to retirement, that there's enhanced severance for workers who are in that aging demographic that are kind of ready to move into that next chapter of their lives. And then for all workers, the opportunity to retrain, to work with employers to ensure that there are ways and pathways to retain if there's a changing nature of work, that the workforce is following that work, or there's for instance, in the energy sector, we're seeing the growth of renewable fuels. So some of the same skill sets, they can move over to those kind of changes and redeploy. So if there is an employer or if it's a crown corporation, that workers have a chance to move to other locations.
Now, from your point of view, what role should unions play in a just transition strategy?
Unions need to be at the table negotiating these kinds of strategies, whether it be with governments or in the example of Alberta and the coal power phase out, that we're at the table, that companies are at the table, that there's that social dialogue that has all the stakeholder groups present and working through what the details are.
Right. So you've mentioned the example of the coal phase out in Alberta. Are there any, just transition initiatives in other provinces where UNIFOR has been at the table, or maybe other unions have been at the table?
Absolutely. In the aftermath of the Alberta work that was done, the coal transition there, at the time, Minister McKenna struck a national task force on coal workers and coal communities, and they are committed to phasing out coal power. So we sat on that task force with a broad group of stakeholders and released very good recommendations, a report that now seems to just be languishing at the federal government level, but there's some really solid recommendations. The task force, our union and other unions went into coal communities. Sometimes it was the first time that folks were going in and sitting down and having community-wide conversations about what is the impact of powering past coal and what kind of supports would the community and workers in those workplaces need to transition.
Now, we've talked a little bit about industries that are maybe sunset industries like coal, but UNIFOR has made some news in the last year or two by being actively involved in negotiating with industries that are on the rise, the sunset industries, and particular with electric vehicle manufacturing. Right. And can you tell us the role that UNIFOR played in some of these negotiations with like GM and Ford, right, for instance?
So, our members, when we're bargaining, want us to be looking at the future of work, whether it's automation or in the case of zero emission vehicles, government policies is driving this change in manufacturing, and our members want to follow the work. They're skilled, they're able to do it. So the move to zero emission vehicles played a very key role in the recent bargaining we concluded with the Detroit 3. And we negotiated government funds as well as the auto industry funds to secure zero emission vehicle production in Canada. There was none before we did that bargain, so we're pretty proud of the work we did, as well as continuing talks around the other pieces of the production, which is battery manufacturing and some of the changes in the auto parts sector. So we're very interested in all the sectors where we represent members in what we essentially call future-proofing our work, making sure that we're on top of what the trends are, getting in front of them. And a big part of that is looking at a planned approach, a whole of economy approach, and always pushing governments, whether they be provincial or federal, to be thinking about what a high investment economy would look like in the future.
Now, final question, Joey, because I've learned recently a little bit more about what some of the unions do around training, which is not something I was familiar with. And so what role do you foresee for unions providing skills training, retraining, upskilling, those sorts of things in industries that are affected by the energy transition?
Training is a really big part of what unions care about and what we do, and has always been sort of part of our DNA. And so, we have a lot to contribute. We have a skilled trade sector that works with government to ensure that training needs are met, that if there's a need to update training, is a huge part of what we think about and what we strategize and bargain.
Great. Joey, thank you very much for your insights. Really appreciate it.
You're most welcome, Markham. Nice talking with you. Have a good day.